Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And for this Monday mini, Samantha and I wanted to talk about a big event.
Make a loud noise.
It has been a part of our lives for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've hinted at it. We announced it in our recent book club, but we wrote a book. We wrote a book. We did. It is called Stuff I Never Told You, The Feminist Past, Present, and Future. It comes out on August 29th. You can pre-order it at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com. You can also see an excerpt from it with some wonderful illustrations. We'll talk about that more in a second. And you can also find the cover announcement and a link to pre-order on our social medias. So go check that out if you haven't already. But we wanted today to kind of talk about it.
Talk about
process.
it.
Yeah. Because it has been a part of our lives that we kind of weren't supposed to talk about on the show.
Right.
For a while, but it has been just for me at least, like a very big part of my past, 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's longer than that, but for really hit the ground running, 9 months.
Right. We wrote that book in 6 months, though.
I know, which was incredibly daunting on top of a full-time job.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was.
Yeah, I would say that we've been talking about doing this book since I actually signed on. Even before I signed my contract to be full-time, the book discussion had happened. And we were like, okay, we wait. Must write today, literally the process. And thank God we had some great book brainstorming between Anney and I. Eve's even joined us at one point, talking with us and helping us through the writing process at the very beginning when she was our executive producer. But yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's a little outdated already. Apologies for that. Because it was written in 2021. We had everything done, and it went into editing process all of 2022. And now we're at the finalization mode, and now being able to talk about it. We've got an amazing team with Flatiron. They have a great crew of people, mainly of women, so that was delightful to see. We were in the hands of these amazing women, as well as our people who helped us, whether it was our editor / advocate / ghostwriter, as well as our illustrator.
Yes, and we're going to be talking more about them in a second because this would not have happened at all without them. So there was a lot of hurry up and wait with this, which is always a stressful thing. And as you might know, if you listen to the show, Samantha and I are both prone to stress, we'll say.
Understatement.
Yeah. So it has been stressful, but we were very, very fortunate, very, very lucky to have this opportunity and to work with the people we did work with. But for kind of a basic layout, a lot of this was you, Samantha. A lot of it was your idea. But we chose there's 13 chapters, but I'm pretty sure we chose 10 topics, and abortion or reproductive rights and LGBTQ plus rights, both of which are probably going to be the most outdated by the time it comes out, civil rights, but also things like athletics, dress code, all kinds of stuff where we kind of talked about why it was important. We looked at the history of it. We looked at the future of it. We talked about why it mattered to us personally. Also a Rape Kit chapter, and shout out to Renee Shelby, who we had on our show when you first started, Samantha, and who was amazing. We used so much of her research in that. And it has these fictional women interludes, which were also your idea, were some of my favorite things, where I got to write about why this character matters and the tropes behind them and all of that stuff. And that's what you can see if you go look at the excerpt that's up right now on the website on stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com. But there was this really, really cool graphic novel element that you were a big proponent of, and I'm 100% behind you, and I was so glad that you pushed it, where we got to work with this amazing local artist, Helen Choi. And it was a really great collaborative process, but it was also kind of hilarious how amazing she was, where I would literally be like, in this frame. It's a bam. Have you seen Spider-Verse? It's like that, but like with tennis. And Helen's like, okay, I can make that happen.
Yeah, she was so talented. She's an Atlanta-based artist and does so much here, and has a beautiful artwork. If you can go check her out, her last name is Choi, Choi. And yeah, actually, our good friend of the show, the creator of our logo, Pam, was the one that linked us to her, which we were so excited to have because, of course, that was two things that we thought was important, that they are local as well as that they are a feminist, but they were part of the marginalized community and that we are as a crew because we wanted to be obviously very succinct, that we want to practice what we preach in how we produced what we were writing. And Helen was right in that realm. And she did an amazing job communicating with us and letting us know what could and couldn't happen, helping us think through our ideas. She made really cute avatars of us. Yes. And it's quite funny. And I enjoy every bit of that.
Yeah. It is one of the coolest parts of the book, in my opinion. And it's one of the things that I've kind of like shown people when perhaps I shouldn't have been like, look at this art, look how good it is. That's so neat. The way we did this is Samantha and I split who did what chapter. So they were kind of isolated in that way. And there is a flow throughout for sure, but it was kind of me working on this chapter, Samantha working on this chapter, et cetera. And at least for me, when I was working with Helen, I would write out this like probably too long, here's this and here's the imagery, and I'd have links and all this stuff. And I think about it from her end, and all she's getting is like kind of my... You know what I mean, right? But being able to take that and make it her own and make it this like really beautiful, beautiful piece that was it communicated exactly what I wanted it to and what I needed it to, because it does tell the story that starts a lot of these chapters. And her illustrations are throughout, but it's just like so key to the whole book. Like it is... Mm-hmm. You can't separate it out, the illustrations and the rest of it. So I feel so fortunate that we got to work with her, and that we got to see like what she made based on kind of our word salads.
Right. It really was. I was literally, for you were way more descriptive because I was just like, well, 3 words, maybe. And she did an amazing job in cultivating exactly what we needed. She even helped with some of our activities because, yes, y'all, you know we love self-care. So we added little activities in the book as well, which is kind of funny because I don't know if it's all as accessible as we hoped it would be. Anyway, yes, there was a lot of complications in trying to iron out what our hopes were versus the reality of it. Yep. But yeah, so she did an amazing job in all of those, making sure that we had exactly what we pictured. And she even depicted several illustrations of real people. And she did an amazing job in that, just taking it like exactly as we would want and putting it in reality in our book. And it's gorgeous. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, I think what was more fun is that each of us took chapters that was aligned, kind of like how our shows, you know which episode are ours, I think. Everybody knows. Right. Outside of us just saying this is us, you kind of know whose idea or what we wanted to do with these things. And that's exactly how the book turned out too, which is fantastic that we were able to portray our personalities from the podcast into the book as well, but still make it a little bit different than the podcast. Yeah. Yeah. It was a difficult ask of how do we translate this podcast into a book when we talk about everything. Right. And feminism is just such a huge topic. And, there's only so much we can talk about, you and I, when it comes to feminism, but that we don't want to ignore all the other things. So that was difficult. And we did want the activities as sort of a like cleanser, because a lot of it isn't easy to read. I would say we made it, it's not going to make you miserable. And we also have warnings at every chapter. Just like we do for our shows.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of those content warnings of like, if you're not in the space for this one's like this level of rating. So I think that's important too. But I just remember so fondly like working with Helen and how excited she was to have like just these conversations with us about like how can we portray this the best way. So she was really a highlight, and her art was really a highlight in my opinion. Also, working with Jane Franson, who is our editor, ghostwriter, handholder, advocate, did like all of the things because we're new to this book world. It was kind of embarrassingly obvious how little we knew pretty early on when we'd be in meetings with like book people and we'd be like, please explain what that abbreviation means. I don't know it.
I think that the many rounds of like trying to stop people and be like, okay, look, we're podcasters, we're not writers, we're going to have to start from scratch. And whether that's talking about advertising, whether it's talking about a layout of a book, the concrete developments of how these books will be laid out, what costs money, what doesn't cost money, all these things that we have no clue about. It was quite funny to sit there and be like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And for me, a lot of the times I would pretend like I would know and then come back to Janie and be like, what did they just say to me?
Yes. I
and
love
have
that.
her translate it.
I would find out later from you that you had done that. I love it. That's great.
Like, can you help me? Because I don't know what that, I'm just going to pretend.
No, we don't know. No, she was fantastic. Like, we couldn't have asked for someone better who just really was able to adapt to like our separate needs.
Right.
And also was so kind and so patient, who kept us on task, who like made sure we got everything done, but also was there if you were like panicking, like, I don't know how to do this, like this is way too much. She would be there. And she was just so, like, we were doing this during the pandemic. We were doing it over voice calls. And she was just so, like, personable and would check in with us and how we were doing. And it's nice.
Her personality was such a great fit with us. We hope that we can talk her into coming onto the show, BT Dubs.
Yes.
Because her job is phenomenal in itself. I will say what we, originally thought was ghostwriting. We had not used that as we thought it would be used, essentially, because we wrote the chapters and they were painful sometimes. I say this as the person like, oh my God, we have to write. And she was great giving us deadlines, which I need those deadlines. Annie was done immediately. And I'm like, give me to the last possible minute to write these 12 pages because I am screwed at this point. But she was so great. I would give her 12 pages of just rambling and she would make it succinct and making it readable. And then even with helping us change our original plans and layouts to make more sense. So that's obviously, she is a professional.
Right. Yeah.
And she was able to help us understand that as well. And the layout looks amazing, in part because of her, because she showed us, or she tried to teach us, because it's a better way, on what, again, is feasible and what isn't, and what actually looks good versus what can only live in fantasy land of scatterbrained Samantha, which is what happens oftentimes. And she did an amazing job. And again, when I would sit and be like, what do you think of this? And then we'd brainstorm, I would come out right with this. And then she would edit the hell out of it and making sure that she's able to relay what I'm saying, even having to come back and be like, did you mean to say it this way or this way? So that was real interesting. But she has been an amazing mentor in this whole thing. Like that's nothing short of watching her magically make this a book. I feel like instead of just essays that we're putting down, which I felt like I was doing half the time, versus like watching her like doing this as a mom, like how she's taking care of her family and then trying to take care of us and during a pandemic, also while like navigating the world of COVID, because we had so many in and outs of conversation. It was quite interesting to see what this looks like. But like in her being our guiding light and being our face-to-face when we were so confused in some of the emails that would come through that were like, we don't get it. And would also hear us out when we were complaining because we were like, this is impossible. Why are we doing this? And her being a negotiator for us some of the times.
Oh, yeah. There was more than one instance where Samantha and I got an email and we thought it was spam. but I guess it was a real book email. And she was the one that was like, no, this is real. Like, oh, okay.
You need to do this. This is a part of the job.
No one told us, but thank you.
Yeah, no one's talking to us. We don't know.
Yeah, that's a story for another podcast. But wow, that was hilarious. That involved like, because there's so much that goes into a book. There's so much that goes into a book. There's so many different people involved. And so, of course, Samantha and I don't know.
Right.
But Janie was great in that and was just so confident, like watching her in these meetings and watching her. Like she did know. She was like, no, this will work and this won't. This will work and this won't. Like that was amazing to watch. And it was much needed because, yeah, you and I are like, what if we did this thing?
Yeah. And I will say for this world, she also told us when we should advocate for ourselves because we would have just been like, oh, okay, they said no. And she would push back, no, this is not, they can do this. It's kind of like having that behind us to give us the confidence to know these are the things and not being taken advantage of. So again, there's no way in hell I think we could have gotten this done without Janie.
No. And that was on the table at one point, listeners. And I shudder to think. I shudder to think. It would have been a mess, the book we would have written without her. Ooh. And that's not anything to say about you or me. It's just that's not our skill set. That's
not a thing. We know nothing about the book world. And again, it is a completely different world when it comes to jobs. Why would we? Why would we as individuals know anything about publishing world? Not even book world, but publishing world.
Right.
It is a whole different beast that I wasn't ready to tackle. In my mind, I'm like, yes, this is how you write fiction. This is not fiction. Like we took portions and made some fictional elements, but the reality of the actual book of it is nonfiction, historical context, and or current events. So having that, it's, again, a different beast in what is being required of us. You know, as much as we are very excited, and I think I'm getting to the point, I can't speak for you, I'm getting to the point that I'm confident in the book. I don't know. There's so many, like I am a naysayer, so I always think the worst before the best so that I'm pleasantly surprised. So I'm trying not to be pessimistic. But like, you know, really getting to the point of like, oh yeah, this is a book. I guess that's the reality. Like be like, okay, it's a book. Yay. Yeah. But you know, we would not have done this. I would not have done this on my own. No. We'll say it like that.
No, and I want to be clear because I have felt strange throughout this because the whole thing is a strange situation to have a podcast that turns into a book. It's kind of new. I've always wanted to get something published. I've tried to get something published and have failed. So I don't want anyone listening to be like, it's just... I'm very happy it's happening. It's just the way that it happened was very stressful. I think probably publishing a book is always stressful. But if it sounds like we're complaining and you're like, well, you're so lucky you got it published, I hear you. But it just what it was. It was like a very stressful thing. And the topic was very stressful. Some of the subjects we talked about were like personally very difficult. And I'll say like we did write it. I think we wrote it from August to February. And that was like every weekend where I would be like literally at my computer crying like sometimes because of the topic I was writing about and researching. And that's what I was doing with my weekends. And there is a like dark part of me that's going to miss that excuse of like, leave me alone. I have to write this book. But like when I look back on this, I'm hoping what I'll feel is like, yeah, like these fond feelings for Helen and Jane and for you, because somehow you and I wrote a book together and didn't like kill each other.
Right.
But it was a very stressful time. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I'm very happy that I'm proud of what we did. Yeah. But it was stressful.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we found a new appreciation for all the authors out there who do this as their job, because it is a thing. And we've always said that when we've had authors on our show, we're like, you published a book, that's amazing, congratulations. And, you know, feeling that, seeing this side of it, like, oh, wow. And again, it kind of was a little more, again, all the ideas, what we created was brand new to us, our brainchild. Like, it was mine and Annie's brainchild. We thought of this, we created this, we wrote this. So I'm not going to try to take that away. We did it. Woohoo! But the way it came out it was very catered. The way that we have already got publishers waiting for it. We've got people who are in the marketing, like, hopefully it's going to do something with it. I mean, outside of us talking about it on the show, we had editors waiting for us. We had an agent waiting for us. Like, all of those things, because it is an iHeart book, which is why it's the stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com, because there's other books on there from previous How Stuff Works shows that are on there as well, which you should go and check out if you haven't, their books. But, you know, there's so much to this. Like, it is an unusual circumstance. Right. And we acknowledge both the privilege and both the stress of given that responsibility, because we want to be able to say these things, tell these stories. But there's also this anxiety, which kept me up. I would have nightmares. I think I told you about some of them, about this book, about if we failed writing this book, and what does that look like? And how dare we even say we should have this opportunity to talk about it. How dare we think that we have the rights to talk about it? And we had to change some of the ideas because it was already so dark that the way we had figured it out was like, it was going to be too dark. It was too dark.
Yeah. And I would say for me, it might sound silly and contradictory, but there's something about writing a thing down that feels more permanent than just you and me talking on this podcast.
Right.
And so I know you and I have talked about it, but I'm just hoping that some people in my life won't ever know that I did this, because they'll just be mad at me that I published it. And not that I really want to cater to them, but it just feels more like they don't know what a podcast is. They're never going to find it. A book feels in some ways more permanent. And that was part of the stress for me when I was writing out some things where maybe I'd never written it down before. And I was like, this feels really heavy and really real in a way that even if I've talked about on the show, and I know this is also like the internet, in theory, you can find anything forever, but it doesn't feel the same if it's not like a physical media, I guess. So I also was very stressed about it. But I mean, all of that being said, we are excited to share it with all of you. We might be going on tour. We're not sure yet, but we'll keep you posted about all of that stuff. We'll keep checking in about this. I'm sure we'll have some more stuff to say, some more social media things. But yeah, we wrote a book.
We wrote a book.
Woo! Yes. Also, there's going to be an audiobook, which I am very stressed about, but also very excited about. We haven't done the recording yet, but
oh God.
Who knows? Maybe they'll hate what we do and they'll cut it.
Oh
no. I'm sure I'll be fine. But yeah, more to come. But in the meantime, yes, the book will be out on August 29th. You can pre-order
2023.
Thank you for always reminding me of that. Yes, you can pre-order it at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com. You can also see an excerpt with some beautiful art, Last of Us themed. You can check out our social media for the cover reveal, and also the links to pre-order the book as well in those. If you would like to email us, you can. Our email is stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Also, this could not happen without them.
That's true.
Yes, and thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.